Alright, I'm putting in my portal axle update for the beta axles for my Gen 7. Very important. They didn't come with any guidance from me. But I noticed in one of my covers, that lower bearing right below that gear on the front is missing. So I got to contact RedCat for that. But putting these shafts in are a little bit tricky. You can see what you're going to do is I'm going to try to hold the phone here. But you're going to push them in to where they go in and click into the axle and kind of lock. Then you got to push them in again further, and you'll see just this tip is barely sticking out because this new gear here goes in. It's recessed now. So that's a big difference in an update. If you don't get that shaft all the way in, that extra little click, and you'll hear it bottom out, what'll happen is you're going to put the portal cover on and it'll be twisted a little bit. So make sure you line that up, push it in, and then push it in again, and you'll hear it bottom out, and then everything will line up. So I'm going to go ahead and push it in, and I'll show you how the gear looks. So as you can see, that is barely sticking out. So now that I go to put this gear on and find it in its right location, it'll snap in there. Kind of hard to do with one hand. But it'll snap into place. Everything lines up, and that goes in there, and this gear will be recessed completely in there. Now you have to line it up with the bearing and all of that as well. So make sure you do that so that way you get a tight fit and the right fit. Okay, you can see that gear is in there all the way now. It is mashed up to the bottom towards the center of the pumpkin, and that little flange is now recessed into that bearing. I'm sure they had problems with some of these portals probably walking and starting to round out, and that's why they did that. Alright, continuing with the beta axle update on the RedCat. I'm going to give you a new gear here. This gear's kind of tricky because I bought this RedCat used. Somebody had already assembled the axle, so I really didn't know how to do it. But I figured it out. In case you forget, you're going to take this hub cover off. Set that aside. The gear may or may not come with it. If it doesn't, that's fine. So this is the gear that actually gets replaced. Is this one right here. This one's going to come off. A little tricky doing it one-handed here. That little gear goes away. It's going to get replaced with this bigger gear right here. Now to do that, you'll loosen up 3 screws on the back side of this knuckle, and that'll allow you to pull out this assembly here. When you pull out this assembly and you clean it off, all that goop right there, you're going to see a pin. Remove that pin, and that's going to allow you to pull this off of the axle. You'll slide the new one in. Can't do it with one hand, and then you'll put that pin back in its place, and it'll all go together. I'll show you an assembled one when I get it done. Alright, so once you have that axle out, to get to that pin, you're going to push this bearing back towards the axle. When you do, it's going to reveal a pin there, if you can kind of see that. That pin comes out just like normal. You can see the pin's out, and this whole assembly comes off. So that's your old piece. New piece goes right in place on there like that. Put the pin back in. Line the pin up. Apologize, I'm doing this not very well with the phone propped up. So then the pin is back in place. Once it's centered, this bearing goes on. A little tricky here. There, snapped in. Once that bearing's in place, then this gear is now locked into your axle. And again, you'll just grab your assembly here, your turning knuckle, and this assembly goes in, or that bearing goes in. Make sure that bearing is seated completely. If you don't, you go to put those 3 screws in, what'll happen is the screws will pop off to the side because it's just plastic holding that in there. So put these 3 screws back in, put your bushing or your kit back together, your portal hub back together here, screw it all up, and you're finished.